Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for the 10th of October 2012. Look at this, the Madden-Julian Oscillation heading from barely detectable here, coming out of the western Pacific region, more towards the Atlantic Basin where it gets fairly amplified here. I think that this will eventually mean that we will see development beyond what we're seeing with 98L, that when we see the MJO get over here in phase 1 and 2, history has shown that we can have pretty substantial activity develop in the Atlantic Basin. And this time of year, that would favor the Western Caribbean. Now, right now, our attention is focused on this area, 98L, out in the tropical Atlantic east of the islands, but I think that once this MJO pulse comes over here into the Western Caribbean, that we will eventually see development somewhere in this region before the end of the month. But right now, let's keep our attention on 98L down here. And if we look at a satellite picture, visible satellite shot, getting better organized, a little bit more in the way of widespread convection associated with it. Although it's still got a little curvature to it overall, I think you can see that. It's still not having any banding features, no curved bands around a common area of low pressure, at least nothing very well defined. So the vorticity with it is still fairly weak, and we can see that on the University of Wisconsin vorticity product. Very weak area of vorticity down here, not circular in nature. We do have a weak little area up here of vorticity. It is a little bit more like an oval, and once this develops there, I'll show you what this looks like in the vorticity field, and you'll see that it gets more round in appearance, where it starts to bundle that energy and focus it around a common area of low pressure, and that vorticity or spin signature will increase. And we can see that to some extent on the GFS. This is this morning's output from the 12Z run. This is valid tomorrow morning, and there's 98L getting closer to the Leeward Islands, the Windward Islands, and the GFS indicating that it does start to try to bundle that energy together and develop that vorticity a little bit better, whereas the system here near the Bahamas, small and weak and weakening, and you'll notice that this goes away. Here's 48 hours and 72 hours. The system in the Bahamas, leftovers of 97L, backs off to the southwest and weakens into basically nothing, losing its vorticity and its energy. Meanwhile, 98L does come into the islands here Friday into Saturday, going to spread some showers and thunderstorms into the region, gusty winds. So you folks down there need to be ready for that. Not talking about a hurricane coming through or anything like that, at least not yet, but certainly the increase in shower and thunderstorm activity in a fairly slow-moving system overall, not in a real hurry to get out. If we go to 96 hours, valid Sunday morning, and then finally to day 5 on Monday, you see that it's still in the vicinity of the islands here, probably impacting Puerto Rico, the U.S., the British Virgin Islands, and maybe even some of that shower and thunderstorm activity wrapping around towards Hispaniola. So you folks definitely want to keep an eye on this and be ready for what could be a fairly prolonged 2 or 3 day period of rather unsettled weather. If we go look at the 500 millibar chart at that same time, it looks like with the absence of a strong high pressure sitting out here, we don't have that. And you can see what we do have is a fairly decent ridge, subtropical ridge sitting in the central Atlantic, that this should come up probably between Bermuda and Cape Hatteras here and eventually turn on out to sea. That's more than likely the path that it'll take. We'll have to wait and see though if this energy lifts out soon enough. Can this make its way back into the Bahamas before turning and possibly affecting the East Coast? I do not see any indication of that, but this is far enough out into time that we obviously need to see what happens. But I think this has a fairly good shot at developing into our next named storm, which would be Patty. Earlier in a previous blog I called it Pauline, but that was wrong. It's Patty, and I think this will be the P storm Patty for this year. And how strong it gets, well, most of the intensity guidance showing a strong tropical storm passing through the islands, so this is going to be a fairly disruptive event in terms of weekend plans, things like that, down in the northeast corner of the Caribbean Sea. But I don't see any indication yet that this will be a hurricane. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility. That's why we want to monitor these things and stay on top of it. And that is a general look of the tropics for today. I'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see what develops between now and then. All right, until then, have yourselves a great rest of your Wednesday. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth. HurricaneTrack.com is my site. Always a pleasure and a privilege to produce these videos for you on Hurricane and Hurricane HD, and I'll do it again for you tomorrow.